Hello, and welcome to Two Old Timers Spout Off. We are glad you are here. You may ask yourself, who are these guys? What is this all about? We are two old timers in the program of Narcotics Anonymous. Combined, we have over 76 years clean. Some folks think we might have something to say. This channel is for them. We will be spouting off about steps, traditions, slogans, NA history, that sort of thing, all from an old timer's perspective. We'll even take suggested topics, so comment below what you would like to hear about. We wish to follow the 11th tradition, the one about personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. So if you recognize us, please respect our anonymity. We don't represent Narcotics Anonymous, and we don't speak for anyone other than ourselves. If you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and click on the bell to be notified when we upload another Two Old Timers Spout Off.
This week's topic is going to be on step one. We admitted that we are powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. Look at that.
Okay.
We have started our first episode.
Step one, we admitted we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. The thing that I try to make sure that the sponsees that I work step one with understand is that addiction is a way of thinking. It's not the use of drugs. Because I actually had someone ask me once, a sponsor, that, do you do drugs? And I said, no. And he said, okay, I'm going to take whatever your favorite one was, I'm going to put it in the middle of this picnic table. And what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to get up and go the other way because there's that much dope on the picnic table. Somebody going to jail. I don't want to go to jail. So he said, if you can walk away from the drugs, then that's power over the drugs. And I said, well, the first step doesn't say you're powerless over drugs. It says you're powerless over addiction. And addiction is the way that I think. So I think what I missed for a long time, and it finally clicked, was that when I'm powerless over my addiction, I'm not powerless over dope. What I'm powerless over is what's going on inside my head. That's what I'm powerless over. So I'm laying there at night, trying to sleep. I can't sleep because my brain's racing. I'm powerless over it. There's nothing I can do. So I can start there by admitting that and accepting that and moving on. The spiritual principles of step one being surrender and acceptance. Two sides of the same coin. Surrender being what happens in war when you get your ass kicked. And, I think of World War II. We bombed the crap out of the Japanese and blew up two of their cities, so they surrendered. And we killed most of the Nazis, so they surrendered. They didn't like it. It didn't feel good. It wasn't something that they wanted to do. It's something they had to do because they had no other choice. That's kind of the way it is with my thinking. I have no other choice than to surrender the fact that what's going on inside my head, I cannot stop. And it is making me crazy. That's that second part of my life become unmanageable. The other thing that I heard a lot, and it took a while to figure this out, what this meant is that there's nothing external about the first step. So powerlessness is internal, addiction is internal, the admission is internal, the unmanageability is internal. Everything is internal. In fact, you can see someone work a four-step because you see them sit down and physically write. You can see someone take a fifth step as they sit down with their sponsor in an empty chair and go over that. You can see them make a mint. You cannot see somebody work step one because it all happens on the inside of them.
How we report now? For me, before I even get to step one, I open up the basic text, go to chapter 4, how it works. And after the 12 steps, after you read the 12 steps, there's a place here that says there are some questions we have to ask ourselves. Now, these are questions we have to answer before we get to step one.
True.
Are we sure we want to stop using? Do we understand that we have no real control over drugs? Do we recognize that in the long run, we didn't use drugs, they used us? Now, there's some other questions. I'm not going to read them all, but it's important that we answer every one of those questions honestly, because we can't go any farther until we do.
There are 7 of them.
Are there 7?
And
Okay.
only one of them can be answered no. And work step one.
And so that's important to me.
That's the way if you've been to jail.
Right.
Some people haven't been to jail.
No, some people haven't been to jail or institutions. I never went to jail or an institution. I went to jail when I was 14. but I didn't. It had nothing to do with my getting recovery.
Because the answers to these,
Yeah.
well, based on the way they're written, are either yes or no.
Right. And I've never been in an institution.
Right.
I've never gone to a treatment center.
Right.
I've never had a counselor to help me with my addiction.
I have.
So now the next thing that is important, I believe, is over here where it talks about how honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness is important. And it's more important that we understand those concepts before we get to step one.
Right.
I have to learn how to be honest with myself because I lie to myself all the time. I have to learn how to be willing, and that willingness means being willing to do things I don't want to do and give them a try. And here's the thing in Narcotics Anonymous, when I give a suggestion to try, it's either going to work or it's not going to work. But if it's not going to work, it's not going to hurt me. So then if it doesn't work, then I can try something different. But it's important for me to listen to what people have to say,
right,
and then do things I don't want to do. I have this little thing.
It might work.
Right, it might. And I have this little thing in my brain, right, that I know when my brain shouts, no, that means that's something I need to listen to. And if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they make suggestion that I don't like, and my brain yells at me, I know that that's something I need to listen to. That is what I would interpret as trying to learn how to listen to my higher power.
Doing that now was something that you learned. How in the beginning did you shut the no off? Was it scary to do something against the no?
It was.
And
but what it was that I had come to a point and tried so hard on my own to stop using on my own and making promises and breaking promises that when I finally got to Narcotics Anonymous, now this is the part that's going to be uncomfortable for some people, but I was 95 pounds and I was puking and shitting blood.
Right.
And so I had no life, right? And so when I got there, I was to a point. I met a physical bottom. A lot of people will meet. There's different kinds of bottoms. My first was a physical bottom.
Right.
I had no desire to stay clean.
Right.
I had a desire to quit hurting.
Right.
And I had a desire to try to do some kind of living, and I was tired of the consequences.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like that thing they talk about later on, the gift of desperation.
Right.
You know, because how can desperation be a gift? Well, for us, it is a gift because we become, it's what helps us open up that willingness and that honesty, openness, and willingness you were saying we needed before step one. It helps us open up that willingness. Yeah. But I've never thought of in all the years that I've been doing this that the suggestion that they're making ain't going to hurt me if it don't help. I just never thought of it like that. That's awesome. You know,
I haven't done anything that somebody's told me to do in Narcotics Anonymous that actually hurt me.
Right.
I'm not saying that I didn't feel emotional or spiritual pain.
Right.
I'm not saying that I didn't have to go deep inside and feel things and admit things that I don't want to do. Right. But it never physically hurt me or hurt my family or hurt.
Right.
You know, there was always a solution to it. And then if my sponsors would, if it didn't work, then we try something new.
Right.
Okay. And that's kind of like I work with my sponsors or my sponsees, that the fact is that I'm not one of those people that I believe that you should take my suggestions.
Right.
I'm busy. I'm old. I'm cantankerous. I'm a curmudgeon. And by God, if you are going to ask me to help you, I expect you to do what I tell you to do.
Right.
And this is what I do. One time, I'll give you a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you call me and talk about the problem one time, I will talk to you about it one more time without saying anything if you haven't done the suggestion.
Right.
The next time you call me, I'm going to ask you if you did the suggestion. And when you say no, I'm going to say, well, I'll talk to you when you do the suggestion.
I've had the exact same experience with people who've sponsored me in the past, and I've actually done that.
And that's willingness, right? That's willingness and open-mindedness to understand that you're going to have a relationship where you trust somebody, right? And that's why we say get a sponsor, because you can't trust everybody. And you can listen to meetings and hear a lot of good stuff, but you got to have one person that you have a relationship with. You know, not only is going to tell you the truth, but it's going to be objective. And when they don't know the answer, they're either going to say, hey, I don't know what the hell that is. Or
Yeah.
they're going to say, I'm going to go talk to a friend that maybe they know what I'm doing.
Right.
I won't use your name. I'll just bring up
Right.
the topic. Right. Okay.
So those three things, the honesty, openness, and willingness, those are necessary before step one.
That's why they're written before step one.
Right.
Right.
I'm in total agreement with
That's and that's also too why we're talking about step one, but really once you get to step one, you should have read everything before
Before
step one and not start on step one, because
Right.
they're written in for a reason and everything is there to build on what you're building
Right.
on. And the one with the most the one with the most clean time does not win.
Right.
And also the one that does it the quickest does not win.
Nope.
And the one that does it the slowest does not win. You just got to figure out how you're going to pace yourself. I've done the steps really, really quick. I've also done one a year.
Right.
Right. So, it just depends.
It depends.
Right. There's one of the things that frustrates me sometimes about Narcotics Anonymous is that you'll get people that are, I call them cookie cutter recovery people, because they act like there's only one way to work the steps, only one way to recover, only one way to do things. And I find that offensive, because this is a program that I'm a member of when I say I am.
Right.
Right. Nobody tells me I'm a member.
Right.
Nobody can tell me what to do.
Right.
Right. We're all equal.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't matter if I've been clean 40 years or 40 seconds. If I'm at a business meeting,
We're all the same.
I have the same voice and they have the same voice as I do.
I agree.
And I think sometimes we forget that.
Right.
And then if I piss people off on a regular basis, and now I got a good answer for them. And that answer is if I fell off, if you put me on the pedestal and I fell off, it's your own goddamn fault. It's not mine. I didn't put me on the pedestal, because I know that I'm not spiritual. I know that I'm screwed without Narcotics Anonymous.
If you're going to put me on a pedestal, tell me so I don't wear shorts.
There you go.
Because if I wear shorts, you're going to look up my skirt and see my stuff. Just don't put me on a pedestal. I do enough of that on my own. Maybe we should have called this pre-step one
I don't
HOW, but we do need to talk about that and talking about step one, because it's necessary to have those.
And it's also important to understand that one of the problems that we have is getting clean time. Because when we get clean time, we have a tendency to believe our own press, and we have a tendency to think that we know what we're doing because we've worked the steps so much. And then I forget at 40 years that I really need to listen to the guy that's got a week to 30 days, right? I don't really need to listen to the wise guy. I need to listen to the guy that's going to remind me what it's like and remind me, no, I don't know shit, right? And the reason I know shit is because I have a program that was written down for me to follow, because I'm not the kind of person that can come up with my own program.
They told me that you'll learn everything you need to know about staying clean in the first 90 days, and then you forget it all.
Right.
And the rest of the time I'm here is remembering or being retaught over and over and over again, that I need to go to a meeting, that I need to call my sponsor, that I need to pray every day, whether I believe in God or not, and some days I don't, and some days I wonder, and I need to reach out to that other person and to help, because I spend so much time in my own damn head. I'm kind of grateful when other people share with me what's going on with them, because it takes me out of my head and I can focus on your shit for 20 seconds, and if I can get 20 seconds off of mine, I'm good, because that's some relief. But
well, it's frustrating when you go to a meeting,
right,
and then you hear somebody say, well, we got to get back to basics. I'm like, the fuck does that mean? It's all basic. It's so simple. If you don't use, you can't get high.
Right.
Now that's real easy, but it's not something that we're good at. So that's why we have to have the steps, right? People that don't have our disease, you know what they know? If you don't use, you don't get high.
Right.
They also know that if you use a little, you can have fun.
Right.
They know how to stop.
Right.
I know how to not stop.
Right.
Right. My euphoria is completely gone. And so when you're in a program and you hear, I can't get high anymore, what a normal person hears is that you're not getting high. What we are hearing is that you're not getting euphoria. And all you're doing is using and getting consequences.
Right.
And that's where the powerlessness comes in. And if you have enough consequences, you can find that window of opportunity and find recovery.
Get that gift of
Right?
desperation.
Because there's tons of people that know more about the program. There's tons of people that had lots more consequences than I did. There's tons of people that have a lot of things. And I can't tell you how I walked through that window of recovery. The only way I know that I did that, and I think this is part of step one, is that one of the first things I was told when I got here, besides read the black parts and not the white parts, was suit up and show up.
Right.
If you suit up and show up, you will figure it out. The program works when you work it. And if you don't work it, it don't work.
That's right. You were saying that, when normal people here don't get high, they hear you're not using drugs. When I hear don't get high, what my brain says is every coping mechanism that you have has just been thrown out the window. What the fuck are you going to do now?
Because getting high is all I got.
Because, and I've actually had parents say to me, I wish my children had never gotten high. And I said, the alternative was probably suicide, because they were getting high in order to deal with what was going on in their life or in their heads. Whether you were aware of it or not is irrelevant. It kept them alive long enough to find the program, So I can find some gratitude in the fact that I used drugs, because the alternative would have been to be locked up forever, and or dead, So I'm kind of grateful that happened. But when you take that away, it's like they say, you got a really messed up drug addict on drugs, you take away the drugs, what you got left is a really messed up person.
And I believe that. And I believe that that's why step one for me is so much more important in Narcotics Anonymous than other programs. And I'm not here to put down any other programs, because they all work.
Right.
And it tells us, and we will go over this sometime, it says it in our preface, how we feel about Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, yes, we'll talk about
and that's really important to understand how grateful we are to Alcoholics Anonymous, because they set down the program and they used a specific drug.
Right.
And I realized that, no, that's bullshit. Somebody told me, and then I was able to accept it, that there's a big difference between staying clean from addiction, a disease called addiction, and a specific drug.
Right.
And that the specific drug is the symptom of the disease of addiction.
Right.
Just like when I go to the all-you-can-eat seafood restaurant and I eat 18 pounds of shrimp, that's a symptom of my addiction.
Right. I wanted to have you expound on this part, self-will versus powerlessness.
Okay.
You brought this up in our note-taking section. When we were writing down some notes, we were going to talk about step one. And I didn't quite understand. I never really thought of them as being, in the same discussion, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying that. One of the notes that I took here said that most addicts have amazingly strong self-will, which is true. And it's like running into a concrete wall over and over and over again. If a normal person runs into a concrete wall, they turn left or right. We just keep trying to go through. And they walk around the wall.
Then we get through and we look at the hole in the wall, because it's taken us so long to get through that damn hole.
Yeah.
And then we look and we say, oh, the wall has ends. We could just walked around it.
Right.
And we can't see the ends when we see, the problem. We can't do that.
The statement that you made was, after some clean time, you'd be amazed how much time people who have been clean a while actually spend beating their head against the wall still.
That includes me.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That includes me, because I'm
Me
really
too.
I'm
And
really
it's
good.
something I had to sit down and think about, because I feel like I've got a grasp on powerlessness sometimes, and some days. Some days I don't, but I never really thought of the lack of powerlessness being self-will.
Well, one of the things that I've always been told, or, when I first got here, I was told I was powerless over people, places, and things.
Right.
Now, I've had a lot of discussions, not arguments, with people, because they don't believe that that's true, because they can say something and manipulate somebody to do something.
Right.
So that means they have power over that person. And what I think the way I look at it is that person has as much self-will as I do.
Right.
So that person is making a choice to let me manipulate
Right.
them. And if they practice self-honesty, they would know that I was manipulating them.
Right.
Okay. So I really still believe that I'm powerless over people, places, and things. Okay, police. I have a hard time with police because I'm immature. And so it's hard for me to have a conversation with an authority figure.
Okay. My
Okay.
ears aren't working. You did say police.
Police.
Okay.
Yeah, the popo.
The popo. Okay.
All right. And so I only have two choices when I get stopped by a police person. And that is to either react or act. And for me, I believe that that's pretty much all I have power over.
Okay.
And I spend most of my life, especially always in my addiction, and especially in my early recovery, which I would consider the first 10 years, doing mostly reacting and justifying my reacting and thinking I was doing God's will as opposed to learning how to act.
Right.
And my favorite way to learn how to act, my best way that I know how to act, is to shut up and then assess the situation. Right. And then try to do some adulting and making a real decision that's based on objectivity and not on subjectivity.
Right.
And for me, that's where my powerlessness comes from, because I don't, I get a lot of consequences by just reacting to somebody, or somebody says something and say, "Oh, that's stupid." Right. As opposed to, "Oh, that's not stupid. That's not stupid at all. That's pretty smart."
Right.
I work with a guy that I question his intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. But he's not, he just has, everybody has different types of thinking problems, right? Okay. And this guy, when he gets, when I'm there to help him, right, to keep him organized, he comes up with some of the best ideas that you could think of, right?
Wow, that's cool.
Right. And so when a normal person, I've had people tell me they think he's not too smart. I'm like, it's not that he's not smart. It's just that, it's kind of like me, is that I think so fast. Sometimes I skip over processes.
Right.
And then I'm already on point C and somebody's still on point A, and they think I missed point B. So they think that maybe, maybe that wasn't a cognitive thing for me, right? Even though it was, because I have to slow my thinking down, and some people have to speed their thinking up.
And that's hard to do.
Because my thinking is so fast, right? And it gets me in a lot of trouble. That's why if I learn how to act, that means I learn how to slow down. I don't, and that's where I get that saying from, when you make a decision to not make a decision, you've made a decision.
So let somebody else make the decision for you.
Or until you can find the right decision to make, and not just make a decision because you think you have to make a decision. Right. You want to make the right decision. And there's always quality of decision. Sometimes they're really good and they're really positive. And then sometimes there's a whole row of shitty decisions, right? And so you want to make the best shitty decision possible. And if you can't see a shitty position, even a shitty decision that's going to help you get to whatever you're looking for, then you make no decision.
Right.
Because my wife, and she'll say, "Well, why didn't you do something?" I says, "Because there was no good decisions."
Right.
I have a family problem right now that I'm trying. It's been taking me almost a year, and I'm starting to solve it. Right. But I haven't made decisions because there was no good decisions to make. So I just took myself out of the situation until I could make a good decision.
Right.
Instead of causing more consequences.
Right. You made the statement during our note taking. We have been told that our self-will is a weakness. It is a strength that ruins our lives. And I typed that out a word, and it has kind of resonated with me because I never really thought of self-will as a strength. Like you said, it's like, you said we've always been told that self-will is a weakness. And then you can get into this whole, is it a self-centered or selfish disease? It is a self-centered program or selfish program and all that bullshit.
Selfless. It's a selfless
program. I do know that I focused on myself so damn much that when I focus on other people, I feel better about myself. I know that sounds weird.
Well, no, that's because in this step is where we start learning that we've always been takers, and
Takers.
we've always worried about what's in it for us. And this step is the beginning of
Right.
us learning how to be givers,
Right.
right? And that's not natural for us.
Right.
I mean, it's not natural for me today to be a giver. So I just have to keep doing what I know is the right behavior. And then eventually the right feelings come, the feelings I want, because I know that I don't want to be that self-centered prick anymore.
This
Or
kind of brings
self-obsessed prick.
self-obsessed prick. This brings in the conversation we had yesterday, or was it the day before, on the phone, where we were talking about me doing good things for myself. And that almost feels selfish. And I guess that's why I have stayed away from it for so long. You know, it feels like taking again. And I guess it is, but I've spent, pushing 40 years of giving it away so much that, I didn't leave enough for myself. It kind of feels like selfishness. And when, it feels like taking.
Well, we come in hating ourselves.
I know.
We come in, I didn't even have low self-esteem. I came in with self-loathing. And then I found low self-esteem.
Which was a step up.
Yeah, but for years I confused it with self-esteem, right?
It wasn't.
And there's always this part of the things that happen in active addiction where I always think, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that, I don't deserve this. But the bottom line is Narcotics Anonymous, in the previous part of this book, taught us that we're equal.
Right.
And and I take that I'm equal to everybody, not just the people that are Narcotics Anonymous.
Okay.
Okay, because I've always wanted to be better than, or I've always wanted, or I've always felt less than.
Right.
Okay, so I want to be equal.
Right.
Now I forgot where I was going with it, but I want to be equal. And so, I know what I was going with that. So to be equal, if I look at you, right, I believe that you should do things that you enjoy.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean you should do things all the time that you enjoy and that your family loses out or something like that. We have to learn balance. And we have a pendulum, and all of us pretty much look at balance as we go across the pendulum. And depending on the day, sometimes the pendulum swings very little. Sometimes it swings really far. Right. So we have to learn that in order to love myself, I have to do good things for myself. Right. I don't want to hurt myself. Right. Also, too, when I do good things for myself, like in your case, motorcycles, my case, photography, that improves who I am as a human being, which in turn improves me being a husband, a father, a grandfather, a sponsor, an NA member, an NA servant, right? Because when I'm in that upside down pyramid, now I'm not so worried about myself, because I do have some things that I do about myself. So I can do the service work, and I can be a lot more objective, and I don't have to wear my feelings on my sleeves.
Right. I don't have to be right all the time.
I don't have to be right ever.
And
if I can't, well, what I'm saying is, if I can't listen to another person, right, and be able to at least adapt that there might be something there for me. If I'm so adamant about being right, there's probably something wrong with something. Right. That doesn't mean the whole thing is wrong. It just means that there's something wrong with something.
It's like it
needs to be tweaked.
It's a red light saying, pay attention, something's off.
Because I mean, you can't talk about steps without talking about the other ones too. And that's what step 2 is about, my brain being insane. So I have to learn to listen to higher powers before I can figure out what the fuck God is, right? So I have to listen to reading what other people say, the people I trust, different things like that. I have to do those writing, those kinds of things. Those are higher powers that get me out of my addiction, so I can see myself more objectively.
So bringing all this back to step 1, we admitted we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. Is the beginning of, and I heard it said many moons ago in a meeting somewhere, that working step 1, maybe at the convention, was like taking your clothes off and standing in the middle of the street. Well, if you're an exhibitionist, that's not a big deal. But if you're not, and you're like the rest of us, it's kind of uncomfortable to say, this thing has kicked my butt. So as an old timer, because we're doing this from an old timer's perspective, as an old timer, when I practice step one and I work on the surrender and the acceptance, it's all about my thinking and my action and my reaction to all my life and my life situations. I have to realize that what's in my head is not good. But see, what addiction does is it tells me that to go do the things that we talked about me doing for my own good is selfish and self-centered, and you don't need to be doing that.
But there is nothing wrong with some selfishness.
I understand that, but my addiction tells me that there is.
I know, and we have to
I have to surrender to the fact, like, okay, you're a dick and you're wrong.
That's where
and you're telling me, and that's where bouncing it off of another human being who knows me well, like, wife and children and brother, sister and sponsor and all that, and or sponsees, right. That helps me to realize, okay, this is good, because when I am good to myself, they see the benefits of it. And a lot of them in my family reinforce that, right? The benefits of that. And so it's not like, okay, because my thing is, and I say this to my wife all the time, I've got an old tape, and that's a key for her to realize I'm feeling something that's got nothing to do with her. Mm-hmm. Take her out of it so that we can talk about it, because I've got this old tape in my head that says, you're going to get mad at me if I tell you this, and she'll come in and say, I spent some money and you're going to get mad. And I'm like, baby, I'm not the first asshole you married. I'm the second asshole you married. I don't get mad about that shit because, it's money. I'll go make more, I got this printing press in the back. That's how I get it. Anyway.
The other thing with that, right?
Yeah.
Is that you also start to learn with time, because as we have time staying clean, mm-hmm. we start to learn what the appropriate behaviors are. And then we learn, yes. We start to learn self-talk. Yes. Right? Because step two, we know that we're crazy and we can't believe what's in our brain. Right. So we go to meetings, we get sponsors, we read, we do things to help us differentiate between what is real and what is not real in our brain.
Right.
And so we become to know what is appropriate, mm-hmm. And I know that if I walk in and to the house and my wife says, how you doing? And I said, what do you mean by that? I know that is my really bad self-talk, and that I really need to start learning to my real self-talk, right. The fact that I am worthy of love and my wife does love me. Right. And I love her, right. And I don't have to continually look for reasons that she's going to leave me or not right. be with me, right. And that's entirely up to her. Has nothing to do with me. Right. So if she decided she didn't want to be in the marriage, which is 35 years, if she decided she didn't want to be in the marriage, just up and decided, but that would not have. I'm not saying it wouldn't affect me, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be bad, but I'm just saying that that's her decision, right? And I don't have to. I eventually can learn how not to take it personally and learn how to live with it, and not be self-destructive, right?
Right. I don't know how long we've talked. I don't have a clock running. Maybe I should have.
Well, there was one other thing I wanted to add about step one. I wanted to add about self-will.
Okay.
And and consequences.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to add about self-will is that when we were using, people thought we were useless. Right. They thought we were pieces of shit. Right. They thought we were weak. They didn't understand why we kept doing what we were doing. They asked us, why do you do that? Why do you do that? And we had one answer. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't want to do it. Right. My nickname when I was in active addiction was useless.
I know.
That was my nickname. So what I learned was that my problem was not that I was weak. My problem was that I was strong. My problem was that I had so much self-will that I could not see my nose in spite of my face.
Okay.
My problem was that my self-will I wouldn't listen to anything else, even in recovery, and my self-will is what brings my consequences. When I had my self-will it is different than powerlessness, because the powerlessness is the symptom of my self-will. And the
Okay.
consequences is the symptom of my powerlessness. And so when I have enough
Okay.
consequences, whatever that means, then I can see my powerlessness.
Right.
And then when I can recognize my powerlessness, I can recognize that it's okay to be strong. It's okay to have self-will, but you have to learn how to have balance.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And that it's that once you are able to admit that you're powerless, I think sometimes we don't talk about this enough. Once you admit that you're powerless, and you know that no matter with your thinking today, it doesn't matter whether you're using or not using, if you just rely on your own thinking, today is the best it's going to be. And if I don't work my program, tomorrow's going to be a little worse than today.
Right.
And then if I don't work on my program the next day, that day is going to be a little worse than today.
Right.
Right. So what happens when I admit powerlessness, I, through a healthy means, find power.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
And I think sometimes we miss that. We're not, we find power. I find power in the rest of the steps. Other people
Right.
might want to do something else. They might
Right.
want to go to church, or there's all sorts of programs, 12-step programs. But the one that works for me is Narcotics Anonymous.
Me too.
Right. And I'm an atheist, and I still have been able to figure out how to keep God in my some type of thought pattern of what that means, what God
Exactly.
does or doesn't mean, but I don't believe in a cognitive God.
Right.
So if I can do that in Narcotics Anonymous, anybody can use Narcotics Anonymous
Right.
to stay clean.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I
And that's what we mean by this isn't your sponsor's recovery.
bingo.
Because
Right.
we're going to do some. I mean, when I start telling people I'm a non-believer, even in NA, sometimes they get really weird.
I know.
But that's who I am, and I'm not going to change who I am. Right. And I know that if I put one foot in front of the other somehow and do the next right thing, somehow something is going to happen. It's either going to be good or bad, and then I'm going to have to change my footsteps.
Mhm.
Right. But that's
Mhm.
me working from step 1 through step 3.
So if we're going to wrap this up, I guess the takeaways that I would like to share with everybody on step 1 is I can work step 1. It's almost a continuous thing. It's not like an event. It's more of a process. It's not even really a process. It's more of a way of life.
It is a way of life.
Yeah, a way of life, a way of being. It's kind of like, go ahead.
When we first came to the program, I still hear this from people sometimes. I don't know what that was. I don't know why I
On
did
the
that.
TV. Okay.
But when we were told, and I was told, that step 1 is the only step you have to do perfect.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's bullshit.
I do too.
I think step 1 is the step that you have to do in increments and the best you can.
At that moment.
Right.
Because
And that changes and evolves.
as you change and evolve.
I mean, oh my God, if I had to look at step 1 the day I came in, the way I look at it today,
I'd have blown
oh
it right.
hell, I'd ate a bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no, because that was the last house on the block. Because I went to AA, and I really like to emphasize this because I hate it when people put programs down. It just wasn't my program.
Right.
Right. I needed more than being clean from a specific chemical
Right.
to be able to get my brain wrapped around recovery, because the specific chemical gave me too many loopholes. Right. I'm not saying it gives other people loopholes. I mean, I know people that have been clean forever in AA. So
Yeah.
to say that it's not a good program is dumb, right?
Yeah, it's still around. After,
And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here,
yeah,
right?
they wouldn't be here
If
either.
Bill Wilson would have been on the toilet writing the steps,
I know.
you and I would be dead.
That's another episode, folks.
I know, but we would be dead.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And if you expect organization in these episodes, I would suggest that you listen to a speaker tape.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because I'm much better in a speaker tape. Well, it depends.
Depends.
Sometimes I'm not,
Right.
but usually I'm much better in a speaker tape.
Well, I think I have exhausted, tired of talking. Y'all hang in there, and we'll see you in the next episode. You got anything else to share, bro?
No,
Okay.
no, hell, next episode.